Good morning. Well, this is November 6th. As I do frequently, I look up to see what is this day known for. Well, this is the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birthday. It's also the anniversary of James Naismith's birthday. That may be a name that you don't know, but he's the guy who invented the game of basketball. So today is observed as National Basketball Day. It's also National Nachos Day. So I guess if you get tickets and go to a basketball game and buy some nachos, you kind of get a twofer today. But interestingly enough, it also is National Marooned Without a Compass Day. I'd never heard of that. I didn't even know if it was real. So I looked it up, and sure enough, this is a real thing. National Marooned Without a Compass Day. So what they say on their website is this is a day to draw attention to the absence of direction in our lives. They say the day is about rising from the abyss of our lives to become our own compasses. And how do you do that? They say, well, people want to assist themselves, so all they need is a cheat sheet in the shape of a self-help book. It's a day to get people who feel hopeless, who feel like they have absolutely no purpose in life, to go buy a self-help book and somehow to decide, I can become my own compass. Well, how's that working out for us? There's more self-help books in bookstores and in libraries than there have ever been. And yet there are more people who are utterly hopeless than there have ever been. We see that in the national mental health crisis that is going on. We see it in the abuse of drugs and alcohol. We see it in the unbelievable number of suicides, particularly among teenagers. There is an epidemic of hopelessness. And in the midst of millions of self-help books, they were hopeless. So, yes, there are people who are marooned without a compass. But what is the answer? Well, we can go look to a man who was also marooned without a compass for some answers. The man's name is Solomon. He was the wisest man in the world. He asked God early in his reign as king to give him wisdom so that he would be discerning. And God said, I'm going to give that to you, but I'm also going to give you riches. And what happened to Solomon was he got lost in the riches and started to find that life was hopeless. So he wrote a book, the book of Ecclesiastes, and it begins, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. If there's a guy who had no hope, it was Solomon. And so he says, I undertook to try to discover for myself what brings meaning to life. He said, I tried partying, I tried sex, I tried everything in the world. I tried making a lot of money, and I did all of those things. And at the end, life was meaningless. In fact, at one point, he says, I discovered something. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, God has placed eternity in the hearts of men. There is something inside of us that transcends all of these things, all this stuff, all these activities that we seek to bring purpose to our lives. He says, inside of us, there's a compass. God has placed eternity in our hearts. And so when he gets to the very end of his book, he said, this is the end of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. We can get lost in all these other things. We can try to find our purpose in ourselves. But at the end of the day, fear God and keep his commands. The Apostle Paul kind of carried this theme out when he was writing to Timothy. In his second letter to Timothy in chapter 1, he said, he has saved us and called us to a holy life, not because of anything we have done, but because of his own purpose and grace. Our job is to live according to God's purpose. He's placed eternity in our hearts, and he gives us the opportunity to turn to him for purpose. Again, the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans says this in a little larger context. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. On this National Marooned Without a Compass Day, I pray that you have discovered the true compass, the compass that God has placed within us, the compass that calls us to a vision, to a view of eternity, to a purpose of life that transcends the things around us, the activities around us, that calls us to eternity. May this be a day where you point your compass in the right direction and live out your purpose in life. Have a great week.